Most people think they need better time management or productivity hacks to become someone who stops procrastinating and starts taking consistent action instead, but you're already drowning in those. A lack of these hacks is not what's keeping you stuck. If you've been overthinking and overplanning instead of moving forward, it's not because you need more time management strategies. It's because you're missing a few key shifts and the support and conviction to act on them. So today I'm going to show you 4 critical mindset shifts that will help you finally start taking action, even in the face of uncertainty, and making the kind of progress that turns your dreams and ideas into a reality. And this matters because the longer you stay in overthinking, overplanning, and procrastination, the more it starts to chip away at your confidence, and it becomes a loop that gets harder and harder to get out of. But if this has been your experience, you are not the problem. You don't lack discipline or drive. You've just been trying to use approaches that make you feel safe. And who doesn't want to feel safe? I talk about this in much more detail in part 1, which I'll link below. But the first shift is understanding that the mode you use to dream and ideate is not the same mode you need for execution. For ideas, you need expansiveness, inspiration, possibility, creativity, and a sense of what could be before it's even happened. But execution needs something different. Instead of the divergent thinking used for generating ideas and dreams, it needs convergent thinking, which thrives off clarity, selectivity, specificity, and defined actions. But you're often trying to execute and move into action while still being in idea generation mode. If you're anything like me, you probably love the world of ideas. Creativity and possibility feels good. You may even be a bit of an idealist, but no matter how powerful your ideas are, if they're never executed, they stay trapped in potential, and only you get to experience the benefit of them. So you need to cultivate your execution mode with the same importance as creating ideas until it becomes a habit and eventually just a way of being. To start this, I help my clients paint a picture of what these 2 modes look like for them personally and clearly define the bridge that will help transport them between the 2 modes. So firstly, who are you when you're in idea generation and creativity mode, including how do you feel? How do you tend to think? And what kinds of things do you do? Second, who do you need to be for successful execution mode? For instance, how do you need to think and feel? What do you need to do and what will you not do in this mode? And third, what bridge will help you transport yourself from one mode to the other? For example, is it a change of environment? Do you need to change the tools you're using? Or perhaps it's just telling someone that you're going to be doing that for accountability. Perhaps it's all of them. To be clear, you are already the person who executes, but you need to cultivate that part of you like a habit alongside a clear picture of what execution mode looks like for you and how to switch it on. But understanding what your execution mode looks like and how it differs from ideas mode is something you'll avoid if you don't make this second shift, which is to start changing your relationship with achievement and success itself. Because if achievement only counts when something is perfectly completed, your brain will keep avoiding action because the destination will feel too far away and the cost of failure will feel like too high a price to pay. Just like you need to break down your goals into smaller tasks, you also need to break your achievement down into smaller chunks by defining what progress looks like. That way, achievement will be less overwhelming and you can execute not only to get this perfect outcome, but to realize each phase of progress. And each phase of progress will feel much closer to you than that distant, far away perfect destination. If you want support putting any of this into practice, then my progress guide True Tally is a brilliant resource for this because it gives you 10 new ways to see progress, helping you avoid the overwhelm that comes from the pressure of perfect completion. I'll link it below. For you, achievement and success might also be closely tied with your sense of worth, identity, and value. So if you don't hit the mark, that hurts because it's a verdict on who you are. not just your competence. You may also fear that because of this, others will reject, abandon, or mistreat you. But you need to detach the two completely, because achievement was never designed to create belonging, acceptance, or safety. It will never do that for you. We have countless stories of famous people to learn this from. People who achieved everything they ever dreamed of, and yet were still unhappy and in constant inner turmoil. I remember a moment in my early career where I realized how different my thinking on this was from someone that I worked with. I was always asking, is this work good enough that it will make me feel good enough and like I deserve to be here? Which kept me refining, improving, and second guessing all the time. But they had a completely different question and focus. Theirs was, is this done? Because they already believed they were good enough. And so their work was not even about any of that. That realization changed a lot for me and set me free so much, because I realized that I wasn't struggling with capability at all. I was stuck in a pattern that made execution feel heavier and way more complex than it needed to be. Achievement can help you create impact and give you motivation in life, but that's it. Put achievement in its appropriate place. Take the pressure off and reframe it around unique contribution based on your unique strengths, wisdom, and interests instead. Even try and have some fun with it. Because if you don't, then of course you'll overthink and overplan to try and cope with the overwhelm of what failing would mean, especially when it's attached to your identity, your value, and your worth. On the topic of having fun, the next shift is learning to associate making good progress and achieving your goals with being unsure, with not being competent and not being there yet. It might sound crazy, but at the moment your association with things being messy, unattained, and poor quality is a negative one. And so this makes you avoid all of that. But quite often, those are the very first stepping stones you need to stand on to get you moving forward and to build momentum. So if you keep trying to avoid them, you make it almost impossible to start. And that is exactly when your old friends of overthinking and overplanning start coming back in again. You're trying to avoid an unavoidable phase, but you don't need a perfect plan. All you need is the immediate next step. And this doesn't need to be a next step that you're perfect at. It doesn't even need to be good. It just needs to be taken. Before you go any further in this video, I'd love to know in the comments, what's one thing you've been overthinking or overplanning that you want to take action on this week? And what could that immediate next step be? Let me know in the comments below. Making that decision to embrace messy imperfection as a necessary and positive part of your success is part of this final shift, which is about developing a higher tolerance for failure and feedback instead of trying to avoid it. Because the reality is your fear of failure and judgment from others makes you hesitate, second guess yourself, and overthink. I'm going to do a separate video on this tolerance to failure and feedback. But for now, realize that your ability to move forward will always be shaped by what you think failure means and what you think feedback means. You see, over here on this channel, we don't pretend that fear doesn't exist, but we don't obey it either. We tell fear that if it's going to be here, it just better not block our path. You don't need to wait to feel comfortable. You don't need to wait to feel sure that you won't receive any judgment or negative feedback from others. You just need your immediate next step and the right mode. So if you finally want to make real progress, the answer is not more mental activity. It's more mental shifts that you believe in and can commit to. Once you start moving forward consistently again, the next thing you need, which is absolutely critical, is a clear way to see and track your progress. So I recommend you watch this video next for that, because it will give you the practical tools and strategies for doing exactly that. See you there.